right, I'm here at the top of the convention floor with our panel of strategists. We've got CBS News. He's a senior political editor for CBS News. And did I call you CBS News? You're Steve Chaggaris. CBS News political. You're CBS News. You're a political editor. You're CBS. And over to my left, Leslie Sanchez. What's happening?
Hey, it's here.
It's here. We're here. All right. So this is our sort of late night discussion about what happened today, what we saw today. A lot of interesting themes. Tonight in prime time, a lot of great speakers, including former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, who a lot of people call America's mayor. And I can tell you, I was down there on the floor when Rudy was introduced, and the place went absolutely nuts. And his theme was touching upon the theme of tonight, which is Make America Safe. And he talked about that. We want to play a little bit of it.
In the last 7 months, there have been 5 major Islamic terrorist attacks on us and our allies. We must not be afraid to define our enemy. It is Islamic extremist terrorism. For the purposes of the media, I did not say all of Islam. I did not say most of Islam. I said Islamic extremist terrorism. You know who you are. And we're coming to get you.
All right, tough talk there from former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani. A lot of people cheering his comments. Very tough. Frank Luntz saying if he was this animated when he was running for president, might have been a whole different scenario. But Steve, what do you make of his speech today?
Well, the whole speech was like that, and I felt the same way as Frank did. I remember covering that campaign in 2007, and where was that guy in 2007? It's really interesting. Had the audience fired up. What's interesting footnote to all this, that speech wasn't supposed to run in the 10 o'clock hour. That speech was supposed to end before 10 o'clock. Trump was supposed to come out at the top of the hour, but because everything was running so late, Giuliani had a bigger audience with the 3 networks taking their prime time at 10 p.m. Eastern. Giuliani was right in the middle of that. Networks picked that speech up. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of reaction there is to that with the larger audience watching, mainly because it was such a fiery speech and it really hit home the point they wanted to make about Make America Safe again. Giuliani really hit that home in spades.
And Leslie, when I was down the floor, we were doing a Facebook live chat, and people were asking me, why is it that Donald Trump why did Donald Trump want to bring Rudy to this convention? Why did he want to give him a primetime spot? Because of what we just heard tonight.
Absolutely, and where he was waiting for Florida. That's where he was last time around.
That's right.
His strategy was, it didn't really go that well, but he was still a very compelling voice, a very compelling contender in the sense of making a contrast with the Democrats, certainly with Hillary Clinton. And it does harken back to 9/11. It does harken back to the fact he is beating on this issue for over a decade, talking about the growing threat. And it's a very good reminder, and it's a very good position to have within the Trump campaign. It gives him some of those bona fides. And again, it is so compelling coming from the former mayor.
All right, so a lot of interesting speakers. We had Chachi Arcola of Happy Days, otherwise known as Scott Baio.
Who had an interesting line, actually. His closing line was, "Let's make America America again."
Yeah.
Which, again, it sort of plays a different theme than what they're going for tonight. The unity theme. And, you know, I mean, it's Chachi. It was early in the night. Right. But at the same time, the audience sort of loved it.
Yeah, they did. They were into it. They were very much into it. Even when we had been talking about Antonio Sabato Jr. from General Hospital, he had actually a very compelling story and something that those of us who are first-generation Americans can understand. He said, you know, I came here from Italy, was born in Italy, but I went through the immigration process and I did it legally, and why, if I'm able to do it, why can't everybody else do it? That was part of his theme. A little bit saying that you want to be compassionate, but you also want to be understanding of our nation's laws, Leslie.
Sure, no, there's no doubt about that. I mean, you know, rule with an iron fist, but a velvet glove. I mean, it was very much along the theme of that. And again, I do think on the issue of immigration, it does get lost in the weeds a little bit. You know, we want to enforce our current laws, but we want to be compassionate, but we're not going to tell you how. The only how is we won't deport 12 million people. That's the how so far. But I think once they start getting, perhaps in debates. We'll get more into that. But it did make a very nice, compelling narrative for tonight's theme.
So let's talk about some of the people who. I was very surprised that Chris Christie, who supported Donald Trump from the very beginning, once he dropped out of the presidential race, was a strong supporter of Donald Trump. He was standing right behind him just days after he dropped out of the race. Not only is he not speaking this week, a lot of people thought that he might have been snubbed for being Trump's running mate. And Argyle King was on the floor with Governor Christie, and she spoke to him, and she asked him about that. Let's play that.
I think America saw tonight someone who's smart, articulate, who loves her husband and loves her country. And I think it was a great message tonight for her and a great way to start the convention.
Is it bittersweet for you? You know, there were reports today that Chris Christie was livid that he wasn't chosen. Were you livid? Was this tough for you sitting here tonight?
I think Paul Manafort absolutely said publicly that that was not true. And so,
how did you feel?
Well, disappointed, of course. I mean, you know, if you compete for something, at least the way I compete for things, whenever I compete for something, I want to win. But I'm very excited about Mike being the nominee. He's a friend. I'm glad that Donald picked the governor. I think that's really important to have done, to have someone who can be a partner with him in that way, to govern with him. And so I'm chairman of the transition. I take a deep breath and have a big plan to put together for President-elect Trump.
So I know we haven't seen the last of you. People in the room are saying not everybody is on the same page with Donald Trump yet, but we will be there by November. Do you think that he will be able to unite the GOP party?
He'll be able to do it, and so will Hillary Clinton.
Thank you very much, Chris Christie, for your time tonight.
All right, that was Argyle King talking to Governor Chris Christie on the floor of the GOP convention just moments ago. Actually, Governor Christie is speaking this week at the convention. He's speaking tomorrow
night.
Yeah.
Right. I thought the last part of that answer was very interesting. He said, so will Hillary Clinton in terms of unifying the party.
Yeah.
And that, I think, that probably rings more true than the Donald Trump part of it.
For sure.
There's no question Hillary Clinton will unify this party. And what was very interesting watching tonight, we've talked for months about a potential contested convention. We talked today about chaos on the floor over the rules and anti-Trump delegates and all for weeks. And what did we see tonight? We didn't see any booing. We didn't see it. It was a unified group because almost every speaker slammed Hillary Clinton, whether it was Rudy Giuliani or whether it was the Benghazi presentation or whether it was Scott Baio or Antonio Sabato Jr.
Yeah.
All the way down, it was anti-Hillary Clinton rhetoric. And that's where Chris Christie is absolutely right. She will unify this party.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, Leslie, I was down on the floor when all this was taking place, and I was doing this Facebook live chat, and people were asking me, they were saying, why are so many of the speakers going after Hillary? And I said, well, look, one of the biggest challenges that Donald Trump has is unifying the party. If there's one thing that can bring Republicans together, it is their distaste for Hillary Clinton.
Think about that, though, but that's building upon what Steve was just saying, is that traditionally this would be the night when you talk about cultural values, even going back to the 90s, you know, education reform, we're talking about pro-life platform, all these types of things, Pat Buchanan coming out here and speaking. You don't have agreement on solid solutions other than make America great, we're going to build a wall, we're going to be strong against ISIS. It's going to lost, or it's a bit nebulous in terms of what those are, but everyone can fundamentally agree that the alternative of Donald Trump's leadership style brings together a kind of pride and confidence in America. And that's what they're responding to. And that's really something that is that unifying force.
And it's going to be interesting to see what happens next week in Philadelphia, because you do have a split within the Democratic Party with people who like Bernie Sanders and people who voted for Hillary Clinton, and how much Donald Trump comes up and becomes the unifying name in that whole convention next week at the Democrats convention.
Steve, I have been saying today that this is the exclamation point on Donald Trump's run. And this is where he puts a stamp on this party and says, this is my party. I won more votes than any other Republican contender in recent memory. This is my party. The question is, when you see that the only, there are no presidents of the Republican Party that are here tonight and are going to appear this week. The only presidential contender from the GOP who was here is Senator Bob Dole. He made an appearance today. Can the party move forward? I know things happen. Change is inevitable. Can the party move forward without some of those establishment names, without the Bushes, without the for lack of a better word, the establishment? Is that going to hurt him going forward?
I'm not sure that the fact that the Bushes aren't here,
or Mitt Romney, or John Kasich, or
sure. I think that from a fundamental standpoint, sure. Would it be nice to have that organization? Would it be nice to have those donors that supported those candidates on board? Absolutely. This is a campaign that is run on a shoestring, basically. The organization is small. They don't have a ton of money. They're running against Hillary Clinton, who has been raising money for a couple of years and has a massive organization. So sure, would they want to have that stuff? Great. But this is a candidate that is not of the Republican Party. This is a guy who is not a politician. He's not an elected official within the Republican Party, and frankly alienated a lot of Republicans when he ran in the primaries. So it's not a surprise we're sitting here today. So his goal tonight really is to try to, as best as he can, get Republicans at least moving in the same direction toward November behind him. And I think we saw it tonight. The thing that's going to do that is Hillary Clinton.
And Leslie, so at the end of the day, a lot of these folks who voted for Donald Trump say, look, we sent the establishment to Washington in the wake of Barack Obama's victories, and you haven't been able to make our lives better. And that's why we're backing Trump. Absolutely.
Again, about leadership style, not necessarily expertise. They're willing to give a pass on all that and give the benefit of the doubt. You will hear that consistently in the focus groups. They're going to give the benefit of the doubt. He'll put smart people together. He'll figure out national security. They'll get in there on the weeds on immigration reform. We're going to build a wall. We'll figure out how Mexico's going to pay for it. They're willing to ride that risk on this candidate if he still has to balance out. That's where Pence becomes so important, and stabilize, be disciplined in the message. Nobody wants to see any more of these kind of racist tone, protectionist language, xenophobic, missteps. There's not a lot of capital he has in that space, but overall he's on good footing.
Well, to that point, it was very interesting to listen to Melania tonight talking about how inclusive that she thinks that Donald Trump is, and how he's going to work to help Asians and Muslims and African Americans and the laundry list of all of races, ages, and men and women in this country. And it was interesting coming from her saying that, because we haven't heard it from him very much throughout his campaign. And I think that's the beginning of an effort, at least to try to convince Americans that he's not as bad as everybody's making him out to be. We'll see if Americans actually believe that.